Hello, my sewing friends. This is Friday Sews. I'm Jen, and this is my sewing room, where today it's Friday Sews. So before we get to all the sewing, I do want to stop and take a moment and just say to our UK friends who are sewers and sewists, our deepest condolences and our hearts are with you at the passing of your beloved Queen Elizabeth. For me, I think, boy, she was such a remarkable woman. And you know what strikes me about her the most is the way that when she was a young girl and she would smile and laugh and her whole face would light up. She did not lose that at all through her life. When she would smile in her older years, her face would still light up. You could see it in her eyes. What a beautiful sight. So, our hearts are with you. Okay, let's move on to sewing, where I want to tell you that I didn't really get anything done this week, not in terms of sewing. I'm looking around. I've got my little notebook, looking around. Here it is, what I want to tell you about. The sewing that I did get done this week was this morning. I have a version of Simplicity 8640. It is well known among my friends that this is my favorite pattern. And I have a version of this that is a rayon that I put sleeves on. I had never done that before. I wanted one that was a little dressier. So I found that I wasn't wearing it. And I thought, why is that? I don't know. So I decided, I probably would wear it if it were less of a go to church kind of a dress and more of a throw it on as a sundress dress. So I turned it into a sundress. I took the sleeves off. They were flutter sleeves cut in a circle, and I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to come up with some kind of bias binding for the sleeves that would work. Normally, you cut a sleeve facing, but you don't have to do that. You can do the neckline and the sleeves with a bias binding if you like. Well, these flutter sleeves are cut in a circle like this. You can kind of see, and I went ahead and just laid it out, found the straight of green, which wasn't hard to see on the back, and then I just laid my ruler. I have 2 or 3 of these, the Omnigrid rulers, which are so great because they tell you what the angles are. This is 45 degrees, this is 60 degrees, this is 30 degrees. So all you have to do is, use that. And I found the bias and I cut a couple of bias strips from it. They were really easy to do, and so I just used those for my bias binding. I like to make my own bias binding if I can. I always think, it matches better for one thing, and it's the same fabric. I like that. So I did that this morning. I also made some other changes to kind of zhuzh it up into a sundress, which is kind of funny because it was coming from a dressier dress into a sundress, and that's how I zhuzhed it up. I top stitched these waistline seams, and I top stitched around the neckline, and I looked at the hem and I thought, that is terrible. That is one of the worst hems that I've ever done. So I got in there, and of course, me and a seam ripper, I tore it all out and I put it all back together, and I'm much happier now with what I have. So that's all I did in terms of sewing. But I did do quite a bit in here that didn't have to do with sewing as such. I did laundry for days. It literally took me about 3 days to get it all done because I did a fabric haul earlier this week of some things that I got for free at the Sustainable Fabric Workshop in Knoxville, Tennessee. Thank you for all your comments about that. I had to wash all that stuff, but that was only a small part of what I got while on my vacation when I went shopping for fabric. Actually, you haven't even seen most of it yet, and you've seen quite a bit. So I washed everything. Thank you, Trish, my BFF, for reminding me that my washing machine has a sanitize cycle. Takes about 2 hours, but it gets all that stuff really clean. So I did all that, and then I had to fold it, and drying it sometimes made it wrinkled, and sometimes there were edges that had frayed, and the threads all get caught together, and then things get all wrinkled. So I spent a fair amount of time ironing, and then I had to go to Dollar Tree and buy more foam core so I would have bolts to wrap this fabric on. And this is kind of what I came up with. Yeah, I'm kind of wondering at this point what I was thinking. Like, where, Jen, are you going to put all that fabric? Well, it's like in your closet. Out with the old, in with the new. You can always stand to get rid of something that you haven't used in such an inordinate amount of time that you have to ask yourself why you even still have it. Well, I have a lot of things that I still have. One of them is it's embroidered lace. It's got beading, and it's beautiful, but it says Calvin Klein on it. When am I ever going to use that? I don't know. Probably never. So that is a big fat bolt that I pulled out, which gave me room for some more other stuff. I pulled out a couple of bolts of terry cloth, which were less than a yard and should never have been on here to begin with. This stuff is yardage. My less than a yard pieces get rolled up as scraps. So I've got to go through the scraps too, which, by the way, that brings me to Project Dress a Girl, which I hope you're going to participate in that. That is a charity event hosted on Instagram by my wonderful friend Maddie from SEWS. I will link all of the information down in the description box. You can find a ton of stuff down in the description box. Always check there because, your question is probably answered there. So I've got to go through stuff, but yeah, I've got to put all that away. So that's what I did this week, was pretty much that. Let me move on to life and tell you where I was last week. I wasn't here for Friday Sews. I was in Cocoa Beach with my BFF Trish, who said, hey, why don't you come up for the Artemis launch? Well, among my friends, it is also no secret that I am all about space. I love space. I do not want to go to space, but I love hearing about space. I love the science. I love the pioneer aspect. I love the thrill of it. I mean, things with regard to our launching things into space have brought me to tears at times. So the Artemis is, I think it's the largest rocket that we have had to date that we've launched here in the US. And we all knew it was going to be a huge sonic boom when that thing lit up and took off. It's going to the moon. It is unmanned, but it's going to do a lot of mapping and a lot of investigation in terms of us putting a colony on the moon, and then also preparing us for going to Mars. This is so exciting. Well, Trish said, hey, come on up. And so the launch had been delayed from earlier in the week, and they rescheduled it for Saturday, and then ended up that there was a hydrogen leak at one of the couplers. And so they couldn't get it fixed in time for the window, because there's a launch window that they have to shoot the rocket off in, because they'll miss the moon. Otherwise, the moon has to be in the right place. So they couldn't fix that in time, and so they've postponed it. And I'm hoping in October that they will launch again, and I'm going to beg Trish, let me come up and stay. I think she'd probably invite me if I didn't beg, but anyway, I had a great time with her. We had so much fun. I helped her destash quite a bit of her fabric. Here is the triumphant woman. Yes! Look at this. This is destashing. Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bags.
Yes. And she has this most beautiful stash of fabric. But I got to tell you, that whole desk was full. And this was, we went through that, and she destashed over there and destashed. And God, this woman's got the most beautiful fabrics. All of this we destashed, and another full room.
Yes.
We destashed an entire
We
room.
killed it. We killed it. And
Yes.
it feels so freeing. I highly recommend it. If you're just feeling stuck in your sewing room, you don't know what to do, get rid of some crap.
There you go.
Okay.
She's feeling great because, you know, it's like me having to destash my stuff. I told her, I said, you got to come to my house and help me do it. It's such a wonderful feeling of, you know, cleaning everything out. And while I was there, she said, hey, let's make junk journals. Now, I have been asking for junk journal lessons for a while from her. And so I made a junk journal. And, you know, if you don't know what this is, look it up on YouTube because it's really fun. But you just basically take pages out of things and cardstock and you just make pretty things. Pages that you can write on, you can stick little things in pockets. I like this page because it's a map of Paris. You can, like, here's one thing that I did that she told me how to do. It's I think it's called a shaker bag or something. It's just got little trinkets in it. And this is wonderful. I mean, you can turn these into anything you like. And it's a whole thing on YouTube. And now I've decided I want to make a pop-up one. So, yeah, I had been asking her for some time to teach me how to do that. So we spent, you know, the whole afternoon doing that. It was great. And went joyriding in her golf cart after a long day. We are joyriding throughout the neighborhood in the golf cart. Yes.
Cruising down the avenue.
Cruising down the avenue. And we destashed six
bags.
garbage bags
Huge
full
bags.
of fabric.
I'm so proud right now. I feel like I just gave birth to 6 bags of fabric.
Yes.
Going to somebody else.
She was ruthless. She was so good. And we are cruising with Brownie Brittle, and I'm trying not to eat the whole bag. Yeah. So we're having a good
Get your
time.
hands off that bag, Jen.
Because, man, it was hot that day. We went to go to the launch, and we got almost there before we realized that it had been called off. And by the way, Twitter is wonderful for that. If you're trying to keep up with something that's happening, it's a very fast way to find out. Well, so it was a wonderful weekend that I spent with her there, and very spur of the moment. And so I knew I was going to see her this weekend. So later today, I am going to meet her up in the Orlando area, and we are going to get together with Carol from So Carol, who is from the UK, and she's here on holiday, on vacation, for just a couple of days. And so we were going to move heaven and earth to make this happen. So we're going to go up and spend some time with her. We're going to go to the sewing studio in Maitland, Florida, which is a fabulous place. So we're going to go there and just have all kinds of fun. I cannot wait to see her. You know, you have friends across the miles and oceans and, you know, continents, and sometimes you never get to see them in real life. And I am so excited. I'm going to be able to hug Carol. And because she's a Brit, I said, all right, let me warn you, I will be hugging you when I see you. She said, I'm glad you said that. Oh, that just cracks me up. Okay, let's move on from this to last week's question, which I missed because I wasn't here. So let me ask you, what's your favorite fabric to work with? Mine is any kind of a cotton or a polycotton blend, or any kind of a cotton blend that is kind of like a quilting cotton. I love that. Calico cotton, yes, please. Any kind of Kona cotton, yes, that. All of the cottons. I love cotton. I love working with a woven cotton that will behave the way I want. It will press the way I want. It will do what I want. It's the most dreamy fabric to work with because it's hard to mess up. It really is. My second favorite, very close favorite, would be rayon. I love the drape and the softness of rayon. It's just a beautiful fabric. It feels good, and it's a natural fiber. It's a cellulose fiber, and it just drapes. I could never get a flutter sleeve to do this the way that I can with rayon if I used another fabric, a stiffer fabric. So I love rayon. The only problem is when you're working with it sometimes on the off grain, like on the bias or something, it can tend to want to stretch or slip a little bit, but it does press beautifully. And yeah, it's one of my favorites also. This week's question is, do you have any unconventional sewing tools, and what are those? Well, I have a whole list of things that I got one time at Harbor Freight, which is kind of like a hardware store here. They sell a lot of discounted things like power tools and other things. So I'm going to direct you to that video right up here. It was a haul I did, and it's been a couple, 3-4 years ago. And I talk about all kinds of unconventional sewing tools there. One of my favorites is this. In fact, I used this today. It's hemostats, and these are used by doctors to do stitches, like in your skin. And they have these little serrated parts here where you can snap them together and they'll stay. They don't come loose. You have to do this in order to get them loose. But they're like tweezers. And I was pulling threads out that I couldn't get with my hands, with my fingers. So this is one of my very favorites. You can find these at hardware stores. Magnets, gosh, I don't know, chisels. I've gotten chisels where you can use them to open buttonholes. Yeah, let me know what your favorites are. I would, I might want to try one. You never know. So that'll do it for Friday Sews this week. Let me tell you before I go that I'm going to be doing a bunch of traveling. I did not realize how much I was going to be gone in September. In about, well, I guess it is next week on the 17th, I fly up to see my daughter in Minneapolis, and she's moving to Virginia, so I'm going to help her drive down. We're going to stop in Chicago and go to the Field Museum. I think I'm going to try and hit the planetarium, and then we're going to go to Shed's Aquarium in downtown Chicago. So that'll be really fun. I'll try and get some footage for that. Maybe I can, I don't know, hit some fabric stores along the way. You never know. I'll do some research, see what I can scare up. I'm going to get to see my sister, my parents, and then we are heading into Virginia. She's going to live with her twin sister, and her twin sister is expecting a baby. So that Saturday when we get there, there's a baby shower. So all kinds of things to get ready for with that. And then I'll come home, and I think that is all of the traveling for September. But then October, I get kind of the month off, and then November, new baby's going to be here. So I'll be jetting up to see the baby and mama and daddy and, be the grandma. Gosh, I don't think I know how to act. How do grandmas act? I don't know. I guess I'll find out. Everybody says, oh, you're going to fall in love. Well, I am all about falling in love, so I'm good with that. So anyway, that'll do it for this week's Friday Sews. As always, if you would like to see a playlist of all of my Friday Sews, then check right over here. Don't forget to check out all the Friday Sewists because they are wonderful. And I'll leave you with, as always, the thing I always say, do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. I want to do that every single day, and I hope you do too.